You again for waiting. Welcome to today's licensing subcommittee. First item on the agenda is appointment of the chair. Is there a proposer for chairman, please?
Proposer Adrian Cartwright, Councillor
Thank you.
Cartwright.
Thank you, Councillor Gaskell. Seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Davenport. Councillor Cartwright, you've been duly appointed chair of this subcommittee. Over to you.
Thank you very much, all. First, do we have any declarations of interest from the members?
No.
In that case, thank you. I'll move on to introductions. My name's Adrian Cartwright. I'm a councillor West North Hants. I'm the chairman today. Councillors, if you could introduce yourselves, please.
Yeah, Councillor Dave Gaskell, Kingsthorpe North. South, sorry.
Councillor Julie Davenport, Far Cottondale Pre and Briar Hill.
Thank you. Clerk.
Ed Bostock, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you. And legal advisor.
James Chadwick, legal advisor to this subcommittee.
Thank you. Licensing authority staff.
Yeah, hi, morning. It's Louise Faulkner, licensing manager.
Thank you very much. Okay, can I just ask all attendees, have you all had, all those who are going to make representations, have you all had a copy of the agenda for today's hearing?
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, take it that's all good. Okay, this hearing is in respect of an application for a variation of a premise license. I'm going to invite the licensing officer to introduce the report, please.
Good morning, Chair. Just before I do start, I've noticed we did have an acknowledgement that 2 people had put in representations were going to attend. I just wanted you to be aware they're not on the meeting. I haven't had any notifications as of this morning that they've got any issues with attending. So I just wanted to make you aware if you're okay for me to start. You're on mute.
Am I okay now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, good. Right. Yeah, well, everybody has been informed, and we're all here except for them. So it's 10:05 now. I'm going to say we should carry on then, Louise.
Okay. Yeah, they may join partway through, just so you're aware if a couple of other people do join. Okay, well, I'll make a start then. So this is to consider an application for the variation of a premises licence under Section 4 of the Licensing Act 2003 and determine the appropriate steps for the promotion of the licensing objectives. The licensing authority is determining what action to take and will seek to promote the licensing objectives and ensure decisions are appropriate and proportionate. The licensing objectives being the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance and the protection of children from harm. The subcommittee is asked to determine the appropriate action for the full variation application one of the following ways: having regard to the promotion of the licensing objectives and having regard to the relevant representations received from members of the public and any other interested parties. On the 7th of November 2025, West Northampton Council Licensing Department received an application for a full variation to the premises licence for McDonalds on the Kettering Road, Northampton. The existing licence for the premises currently authorises the restaurant to provide late night refreshment from 2300 hours until midnight, Mondays to Sundays, which is shown Appendix C. The opening hours of the premises are recorded on the licences from 6 in the morning till midnight, Monday to Sunday. However, opening hours are not licensable activities. No licensing authorisation is required to enable the restaurant to be open between the hours of 6 AM and 11 PM daily, and would not be required if it were to open between 5 AM and 11 PM daily. Licensing authorisations is only required for the provision of late night refreshment between the hours of 11 PM and 5 AM. A copy of the application is detailed in Appendix A. When an application for a premises licence is submitted, a consultation period runs for 28 days from the day after the application is received. This gives interested parties and responsible authorities the opportunity to make representations in relation to the application. During the consultation period, which ran from the 8th of November to the 5th of December 25, the Licensing Department received several relevant representations in relation to the variation application. These mainly focused on the public nuisance licence and objective due to concerns over potential increase in antisocial behaviour and littering, amongst other things. A copy of the representations can be seen at Appendix B. The issue arising as a result of the representations received are that these are concerns about potential increase in antisocial behaviour, littering, noise and unpleasant odours, and a potential decrease in road safety connected with the proposed additional hours of use should the variation application be granted. So the choices the committee have, they may take the following steps: modify the conditions of the premises licence or reject the whole or part of the application. The conditions of a licence, including the hours during which any licensable activity takes place, are modified if any of them is altered or omitted or any new condition is added. I'm not going to run through all of the legal comments unless anybody wishes me to do so, because they're all included in the report. Well, I hope that's okay. Back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I'm back on now. Okay. We're now going to hear representations from each of the parties. The parties will all have an opportunity to make their presentations later in the hearing. At the end of each presentation, we'll have an opportunity to ask questions. Please keep your questions only on what you've just heard. Right, so do we have any objectors online yet, Ed?
Mr. Crick has joined the meeting, Chair. We had him down as speaking.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Crick, would you like to make a presentation to the committee, please?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and my apologies for my late arrival this morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak, committee members. My name is John Crick, and I live close to McDonalds on Kettering Road. It's a residential area, which the council has already recognised. When the restaurant was approved in 2018, the planning committee imposed a very clear condition. The premises, this is a quote, the premises shall not remain open to customers between midnight and 6 AM. And the reason they gave at that time was in the interest of protection of residential amenities. That restriction was imposed by elected councillors, and it was entirely consistent with the council's own planning policies, particularly policy S10 and BN9, which cover noise, air pollution and safety. When that planning protection was removed a few weeks ago by the planning department, residents were not consulted. No site notice was displayed, and the only neighbours notified were Morrison's and Starbucks, the other two commercial operators on the site. So this licensing hearing is the first and only opportunity for the community to express concerns about 24-hour operation. I raise this to explain why residents feel so strongly about being heard today. Before looking at the detailed impacts, there's two fundamental issues that go to the heart of this application. Firstly, nothing has changed since 2018 to justify 24-hour opening. The original restriction was imposed because councillors recognised the residential character of the area, the proximity of homes, the peaceful nighttime environment, and the risk of noise disturbance and antisocial behaviour. All of those factors still apply today. The council's own reasoning still stands. Secondly, the second fundamental point of principle, this decision that you'll be taking today will set a precedent for the whole site. If 24-hour opening is approved here, it'll be extremely difficult to resist similar applications from other businesses like Starbucks and Morrison's that are on the site. This could become a test case, effectively opening the door to a 24-hour commercial zone in the middle of a quiet residential neighbourhood. This is not about just one restaurant, it's about the future character of the entire area. Let me just briefly outline what the 4 real day-to-day impacts are that 24-hour opening would impose. First of all, nighttime noise, traffic and disturbance. 24-hour opening inevitably brings more late night vehicle movements. It must do. It would bring more noise from engines, doors and people, more delivery drivers and more antisocial behaviour risks. And in the summer months, when windows are open, the thumping sound of music playing from cars waiting to turn into the site. At 1 or 2 a.m, even small sounds feel very amplified and they travel straight into bedrooms where people are trying to sleep. This directly conflicts with policies S10K and BN9E. Secondly, air pollution. Air pollution at this junction is already high. There's more late night traffic, including delivery drivers, will worsen air quality in an already polluted area. Even this morning, half an hour ago, the NO2 levels right outside this site were 176% of World Health Organization guidelines. And that's using the West Northants' own monitoring equipment. So this conflicts therefore with policy BN9 about maintaining and improving air quality, particularly in poor air quality areas. Thirdly, litter. I personally pick up McDonald's litter 3 to 4 times a week. Extending the hours simply extends the window in which litter will be generated. And number 4, the impact on walking, cycling and safety. Policy S10E requires safe access by walking and cycling, but because the road feels unsafe for cycling, delivery riders already use the narrow pavement. A 24-hour operation will make this worse for people who are walking home late at night. In summary, the 2 fundamental issues are: nothing has changed since 2018 to justify the removal of the midnight to 6 a.m. protection. And secondly, approving this application would set a precedent for the entire site. The detailed impacts, noise, air quality, litter and safety all reinforce the same conclusion. For these reasons, I respectfully ask the committee to reject this application to extend the hours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Crick. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Crick on what he said?
No questions, because he did present his case, quite eloquently, so we do understand.
Thank you.
Nothing from me, thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. If no one else has any questions, then I thank you, Mr. Crick. I'd like to invite the applicant to make their representations, please.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning to you and your colleagues.
Oh, it's frozen.
Yeah, she's stopped as well. Yeah, I thought it was just me for a minute.
My name is Sarah Clover. I'm the... Oh, I've got some representatives of the restaurant with me in the meeting today, and they will be able to answer any questions that you may have in due course. I've got Perry Akhtar, who is the franchisee for this particular restaurant. The franchise is called Casper Restaurants. You may know that McDonald's operates in terms of franchises, so individual business people will own and operate some of the restaurants under their own business names, but under the banner and badging of McDonald's. But these are individual business and business people who are operating. I've also got Mark Buckley in the meeting, who is the operations manager, and Jodie Allison, who is the operations consultant. So all of those are here today ready and willing to answer any questions that you may have, but I will do the presentation on their behalf. And the main objective that I have today is to calm any concerns that there might be on behalf of the residents. And I note that not all of them are here, but in any event, I'm going to address all of the concerns as if they were here to make sure that you have a high degree of comfort by the end of this application that it will run smoothly. So the franchisee, Mr. Akhtar, has been working with McDonald's in total for 39 years and has been a franchisee for 22 years. So there's a huge amount of experience within this particular operator. Casper Restaurants currently runs 10 McDonald's outlets. 9 of those have 24/7 licenses. So there's a wealth of experience in running the 24/7 operation and any impacts that might or might not give rise to and how to deal with them and so forth. And there are some individual restaurant measures that are brought to bear, but there are also some McDonald's measures across the entire estate that are brought to bear, which I'll explain a little bit more about later on, but they include things like litter, control of antisocial behaviour and so on, but I'll come on to those in a little bit more detail in due course. Across Casper Restaurants, Mr. Akhtar, 1,227 members of staff are employed. And at this particular restaurant, currently, there are 110 people who are employed by virtue of this restaurant, and there would be 20 more as a result of this license, this new planning permission that's been granted. So the impact on local employment, local economy is significant. And again, I'll have a few more things to say about that in due course. The planning permission is absolutely critical here. You've already heard that the restaurant has had planning permission. I think the application went in 2017. It may have been granted in 2018. There was a variation of that planning permission in 2019, which means that it was looked at again. And then more recently in November, there was a further variation of the planning permission to grant the 24/7 operation. So Mr. Crick is correct to comment that the original grant of planning permission back in 2018 had the hours limitation for opening on it. And he's right to say that those hours were restricted in order to comply with policies at the time about residential amenity. But the crucial point here, and it is quite determinative in this case, is that the temporary planning permission was granted for a period of 1 year, specifically to test the impact on residential amenity of the 24-hour opening. Now, that is in consideration of how the restaurants operated already. And I know that some of the residents have raised concerns about things like the noise arising from the restaurant, maybe mechanical noise, but also antisocial behaviour noise, and also odour and transport impacts as well. When the planning permission was originally granted, it was done so with a certain number of conditions upon it and a number of management plans that were imposed upon it. There was a noise management plan specifically. There was a travel plan specifically looking at highways and traffic impact, and there was an odour management plan, and those were all part and parcel of the original grant of planning permission. So those plans and management plans were conditioned and required to be complied with, and what the planning department and the officers will have done is to look at how well those measures have been working. So all of your officers, your planning officers, but also your environmental health officers, your environmental protection and noise officers will have looked at the planning application and will have looked at those conditions that were originally granted in the management plans to see if they're working. And to date, so far, they clearly are, because those officers now have enough confidence to say we're going to test it further. We're going to try for a year to see if there's any further impacts upon the residents from the 24-hour opening. And if there are negative impacts, then at the end of the 12 months, that planning permission will not be renewed. But if there are no noticeable impacts, then it will be renewed and the planning permission will continue. So this license is obviously required, the premises license under the Licensing Act is obviously required because one has to operate to the most restrictive authorization that exists. So in other words, if the planning permission won't allow you to open, it doesn't matter if your license lets you. But by converse, if the planning permission does allow you to open and your license doesn't, you still can't. So they both need to balance. Now, here's the real important point in this application, and this is really my primary point. Since November of 2025, your officers and your legal advisor will tell you we have had the new national licensing policy framework that the government introduced at the end of November of last year, 2025. And in it, the policy framework, which is the equivalent of the NPPF, the National Planning Policy Framework, in it, there are a number of requirements now of licensing authorities in terms of how they approach their licensing decisions. And the most important one, as far as I'm concerned, appears in the partnership working section. And it says this. It says it is important that licensing decisions do not undermine planning decisions which take primacy. And that is a matter of policy, which would translate into a legal position. Means that now that the council, your council, has granted a 12-month temporary planning permission, specifically in order to test these issues, it would be perverse not to grant the license to go with it, because otherwise the planning permission is null and void. It has no effect. So that really is the baseline for today's application, and that is the reason why it is being made. That all being said, there are a number of comforts and reassurances that I can provide here today about why it is a safe and appropriate thing to do to allow the license to marry with the planning permission to see how this application will go. Mr. Crick and some of the residents mentioned air quality. You will know that air quality, air pollution is something that is dealt with under the planning banner. So that would not be a licensing objective. That's not something to look at today. But again, it is something that the planning department will have considered as to whether it's appropriate to grant the temporary permission that they have given. The objections also talk about a number of issues that are already dealt with, and not only in the planning permission, but in the license conditions already. So this is an application for 24-hour opening. It does require a balance recorded on the face of the license of the late night refreshment license, which you understand is only required between 11 o'clock at night and 5 o'clock in the morning. But it does require on the face of the license for the opening hours to be 24 hours as well, because if those remain restricted on the face of the license, although your licensing officer is quite right to say that it's not a licensable activity to be open, it does require recording on the face of the license. So that would be important as well. But you do already, on the face of this license, have a suite of conditions. And I think this is set out in page 30, probably towards the end of your agenda pack, as to what those conditions are. Those obviously would continue right the way through the night as the restaurant continues to operate. And this is where you come into the McDonald's suite of conditions that apply fairly standard across all of the units with the McDonald's badging. So you have state-of-the-art CCTV that operates. You have a CCTV system that links to something called the staff safe system, which is a monitoring process. So McDonald's has an external monitoring center that can access the CCTV of any McDonald's unit. So they can watch essentially like an eye in the sky to see what's going on in any restaurant. And if staff press an alert or a trigger to that monitoring center, then the monitoring staff can see, they can zoom in and see what's going on in that restaurant. Staff can do it anonymously if they need to, if there's some kind of emergency or if they feel under threat. And then the monitoring center can deploy emergency services, police, whatever else might be required. Fortunately, it's not necessary on very many occasions. It's quite a rare thing, but it's there. And it's something that helps to monitor and control any untoward behavior within the restaurants. The voice from the sky can actually speak. So that people in the restaurant could hear an external voice saying, you're under observation, you're being watched, stop doing what you're doing, whatever it might be. In addition to that, Mr. Akhtar, in his particular restaurants, has body-worn cameras for his staff. They have a small personal camera that's attached to them, which gives them additional protection. It obviously captures evidence if it's required. Unfortunately, most of these things mean that actually the number of incidents are extremely low. you will see the proof of the pudding in that the police do not have an issue with this application. None of the responsible authorities do. There have not been any objections from any of the responsible authorities, which is unsurprising insofar as the responsible authorities have been involved in the planning permission. You wouldn't expect them to object then to the license, which would be your environmental health officers, noise officers, and so forth. But the police as well will have been aware of the planning application, but have also got an opportunity to bring to you any concerns that they might have about any previous antisocial behaviour, boy racers, trouble around the restaurant. I think some of the residents mentioned concerns about drug dealing or anything of that sort. The police would be onto that if there was something of that sort going on in this vicinity and would bring that to your attention. And they have not, because there has been nothing of particular concern to them, and they are quite content for this application to go ahead. In terms of the movement and the congregation around the restaurant, you'll probably know where this location is. McDonald's actually only have a few parking spaces. I think they have 3 standard parking spaces, 2 for blue badge holders, and another 2 set aside for their drive-through facility. So their dedicated parking space over which they have control is actually quite small. And the rest of the parking area is the Morrison's car park, which McDonald's don't have any control over at all. So you have a Morrison's supermarket, as you will know, Morrison's petrol station, and then the Starbucks drive-through as well in that location. But if the police had a concern about any of that area, they would bring that to your attention. So as far as the additional conditions are concerned, McDonald's also has 2 other specific areas that it controls across the board with its restaurants. One is the antisocial behaviour workbook. There is a dedicated workbook and set of policies that McDonald's and their franchisees follow about controlling antisocial behaviour. It's something that their staff are trained on specifically as to how to deal with particular situations, how to de-escalate any tensions, how to remove people from restaurants, all of those sorts of things. And then another key area that obviously raises a lot of feedback is litter. And I think some of the residents have indicated that McDonald's do not collect litter, that they started to and they stopped or something of that sort. That's not correct. And that's demonstrably not correct. I don't know if you've been sent it. I think possibly you have not, but McDonald's have provided a set of photographs of the litter collecting equipment that is specific to this restaurant. It's pretty standard across the estate, but there are McDonald's litter trolleys that staff will push around 3 times a day, I think, in this particular location. Yes, so they have a litter travel path, which is followed 3 times a day. I've got a copy of that litter travel path, also known as a trash walk. And it goes up the Kettering Road. It goes around near the Rathgar residential care home. It goes near to Busy Bees, which I understand is a childcare centre of some description. It goes up by the Lloyd's pharmacy and down the residential roads in that direction. So I hope that provides some comfort. That's conditioned on the licence. The fact that there are regular litter picks that McDonald's do. If they didn't do them, that would be a breach of a condition, which is a potential criminal offence. Now, McDonald's, as you can imagine, takes their litter picking particularly seriously because it's a reputational issue, because everybody knows the apocryphal stories about McDonald's litter. So they have been particularly vigilant about it since the 1980s. I'm not going to say it's possible to pick up every single item of litter. Of course it isn't. However, they don't only pick up their own litter on these litter picks, they pick up everybody's litter. And it's notable that the other businesses in this location, Starbucks and Morrison's and so forth, don't send staff out to pick up litter. But McDonald's will put everything they find. They don't just pick up their own and leave other cups and bags or whatever it might be. They will pick up everything they find and put it in the trolleys as they are going round. Now, there's a human limit to what can be done, but it is still quite an important public service that is being provided to this particular location and nationally. This is something that McDonald's will typically do. And I do have, as I say, I have the photographs with me if required. Just wrapping up then, there are other contributions that McDonald's, this particular franchise in this particular location, makes to the local community, which is also worth noting, that this is a contributor to the local economy, and that is an important factor, as the national licensing framework now makes abundantly clear. And in that regard, I'd also ask you to note the new Secretary of State Section 182 guidance and paragraph 1.18, which is a new section that was put in around about the same time, November, December of last year, which says that licensing decision makers, so committees such as yourself, are specifically required to consider economic growth. That's something, unsurprisingly, that the government is particularly keen on at this juncture with all of the economic pressures and difficulties that we have. And so licensing decisions are now expressly required to take into account the economic benefits of the grant of a license. So sometimes you will hear people say, although in fact not these residents, well, they shouldn't be allowed to make more money, profit is a dirty word, and so on and so forth. That's not right. Logically and sensibly, if we have entrepreneurs and businesses who can make sensible contributions to the local economy, that is to be encouraged within the balance of the licensing objectives, and that's certainly the case here. But there are other contributions that this particular restaurant makes to the local community. They support the CIRV, which is the Community Initiative to Reduce Violence. That's a police initiative. And what that does is to allow the police to use the McDonald's restaurants as a safe space to meet with young offenders, to meet with people who are causing trouble or difficulty, and to sit down with them and eat and drink with them and have a conversation with them in a safe, neutral space. And McDonald's will provide that space for the police to use and to give the young people a free meal in doing so. Casbah Restaurants is also part of the Northampton bid, an active member of the Northampton bid, and the bid takes part in litter picks and local litter collection as part of the Clean Up Northampton campaign. And McDonald's is an active contributor to that campaign as well. And on top of their own 3 times a day litter pick, Casbah Restaurants arrange litter events with other groups in the area and support other initiatives and cleanups. The Kettering Road restaurant, this particular restaurant, is already a kit sponsor for the Parkland Tigers Football Club, and they are a supporter of the 50th Northampton Scout Group. So there's quite an active payment back to the community from the activities of this restaurant. Obviously, if their economic activity is allowed to thrive in accordance with a new license and the new planning permission, then they will be able to keep up with those activities and hopefully do even more. So those are the points that I wished to make to you. I'm sure any of the members of the team or myself will be very happy to answer any questions that you may have, but I hope that that does assuage some of the concerns that have been raised in the objections.
Thank you very much, Ms. Clover. Do we have any questions from the licensing officer, please?
Yes, sorry. Oh, sorry, from you. Sorry.
No, yeah, no, not from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the objectors, Mr. Crick?
I would just like to make a point of clarification about the national guidance and the division between licensing and planning. Just to reassure, and I'm sure members of the committee know their role already, but just to point out that the national guidance does not say that licensing must follow planning. It says that the 2 systems should be coordinated, but they are separate regimes. It's perfectly acceptable for a licensing committee to take a different view than planning. Otherwise, there'd be no point in having the committee, obviously. And in this case, the reasons are very clear. The fact that residents were not consulted, there was no public notice posted on the site when planning made their decision, and that decision was taken by officers. And so this is the only chance that residents have had to make any kind of representation at all. Thank you.
Thank you,
I'll
Mr.
take
Craig.
those
I
as
understand that. Oh,
questions,
sorry,
May.
other questions. Sorry, Sarah.
May I take those as questions and provide responses, because it is
Thank
quite
you.
important. This is a lawful planning permission. So in terms of the consultation that was or was not done, the presumption of regularity says it is a lawful planning permission. If the residents wish to challenge it, obviously they have a judicial review route to go down, but for this licensing committee to say they weren't consulted, it's not lawful, it wouldn't be possible. And also it may be that Mr. Crick, and it's completely understandable, is not up to speed with the changes to the licensing guidance, but I am here to inform you, and obviously I've been doing this a little while now, that it changed in November, and the quote that I gave you is accurate. And I'll say it again, that the framework says it is important that licensing decisions do not undermine planning decisions which take primacy. Now, that was an introduction that was proposed by Kate Nichols, as it happens, who you may recognise as UK Chair of UK Hospitality. She has been a trusted advisor to the government. She led the licensing sprint, which was a government initiative last year, which resulted in the National Licensing Policy Framework. And that wording has been expressly accepted by the government. And it is the framework within which a licensing decision maker would now be expected to operate. So although Mr. Crick is correct to say there are two different regimes, the government's been working for a while now to coordinate them better and to get them to work together in a smoother way. And that is the decision that they have made. So it would be eyebrow raising, not to put too fine a point on it, if a licensing decision now contradicted the planning permission that was provided specifically to test later hours. That's why the temporary permission has been given. I'm not going to ask for a temporary license because that is an unnecessary cost to the applicant, because the licensing regime has the facility of review. So you can remove the license if required. Let's say, for example, the 12-month temporary planning permission didn't work out and it was not renewed. At the end of the 12 months, you could review and remove the license because of whatever the impacts were, but you can't do that with a planning permission. But I'm not inviting you to create an additional expense for the licensee. So this is a full application for permanence. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, we'll move on to the committee then. Councillor Davenport, did you wish to ask your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify for my own mind the level of custom you think you'll be getting, and also will it mainly be delivery to people, or whether you're expecting, through traffic?
Thank you, Councillor. Can I invite one of my colleagues to come in on that, Mr. Actor, Mr. Buckley, or Miss Allison, as they feel appropriate, to give you a better idea that their operations, they will know the answer to that better than I do.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Currently, when we close, the staff are generally there till about 2:30 in the morning, closing the restaurant down, cleaning everything and following the procedures. And they're normally back in at 4:30 in the morning to get the restaurant ready for opening at 6 o'clock. So in reality, it's only about 2 hours of the day when the restaurant is fully closed. So we're not expecting a massive increase, because every other restaurant in Northampton, apart from Drapery, is open 24/7. So nobody's going to travel from other areas to come to Morrison's or to this side. It will just literally be facilitating local traffic, local people, nighttime economy, people passing by. It gives them a chance to get a coffee or whatever on their way to work or on their way home. So we're not expecting any increased level of traffic or customers than we are now. in that area.
But 24/7, that will be also for delivery, say to people that work nights in their lunch hour or something.
Yes.
Yes. So you
We
will
currently
have
provide delivery from 6 a.m. till midnight, and that the delivery partners provide delivery 24/7. So yes, somebody wanted to order a delivery from midnight onwards till we open, yes, they would be able to order delivery.
Yes, so that will perhaps be more the traffic coming through your delivery drivers.
Well, generally, people in the area, it's a 3-mile radius. So every restaurant has a 3-mile radius where they can deliver. So currently, some of that area is already covered by Western Fable. So it would only be a very small proportion of the area that is not under the 3-mile radius of Western Fable, which currently can't order delivery.
Okay. And the other thing is, they mentioned about litter. Now, I know that what the guidelines say for the restaurant, but I have personal experience of this. Another chain, not McDonald's, not too far from me, they're supposed to do litter picks, but I often get complaints that they're not actually doing it. So if someone doesn't turn up for work that day, then you see what I mean? Then you can't do everything. So is it done religiously every day?
It is done religiously every day. And if somebody doesn't come to work, in most stores, we have dedicated people, and we call them maintenance men. So they don't actually work in the operation of the restaurant. They just look after all our litter, deliveries, all of our sort of external stuff to make sure that, we comply with all the regulations. So, and if somebody happens to ring, we can always call people in. We have the facility, the business manager of each restaurant has a list of on-call people who may want to come in because they're looking for extra hours. So we'd bring somebody else in and cover those duties.
Yeah, and the staff's safe system. Did I hear that it just covers your area with the 2 disabled parking bays, the 1 parking bay, or it doesn't cover the wider area, does it? Or what does it cover?
The staff safe is basically for the restaurant,
So
and
inside.
and also for when people do the litter picks or when they do the trash walks, they can put it around their neck. So if they're outside and they have any issues or any safety concerns, so they can press the button from when they're doing the trash walk. But generally speaking, it's within the restaurant.
So there's nothing outside. If there was any problems outside, they'd have to wait for the police then, would they, if it was reported?
Well, now obviously we've introduced the body cams. So the manager dealing with it would have a body cam on his shirt, and they will tell them, look, you are being recorded. So for that purpose alone, this is why we've introduced that. But we do have external CCTV covering our site.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Akhtar, you mentioned you don't expect any increase of business or anything. So I'm curious, why do you want to increase your expenses and have extra staff there if you're not going to get any benefit from being open 24 hours?
It's currently I'm paying staff to be there without any sort of sales. So we're hoping, but while they're doing all the cleaning and everything else, we can take some sales and reduce the cost. So it's just literally, it's more of a convenience for us and the customers. And also the message, we at McDonald's goal is to have one simple message that we're open 24/7. So as a customer, you have the confidence, if you want to choose to come to us, that you can come to us. So you're not worried about whether they're going to be open or closed. So the overnight business counts for less than 10% of our turnover at the moment. So but it's just purely providing confidence for everybody that we're open.
Okay, thank you. Does any councillors have any more questions?
Yeah, please, Chair. I'd like to ask how many of your other restaurants that are open 24/7 are in residential areas?
So every other restaurant, from Rawn's to Toaster, are open 24/7. Western Fable is open 24/7. St James is open 24/7. We
Yeah,
used to open Drapery 24/7 before COVID, but then we took a decision because of obviously, and the nightclubs have gone, so we don't do that anymore. We closed there, so we still have the license there to if should we wish to open 24/7. But we made a decision that we would like to close that restaurant at 10 p.m. now. So the
yeah.
Drapery
Sorry,
opens at 6.
sorry to interrupt. My question was, how many of them are in residential areas?
Well, Drapery's in residential area. They've got housing behind them. Western Fable.
And Western Fable's within a shopping centre, within a, it's in a
But
retail.
it's got houses. The houses are closer in proximity to Western Fable than they are at St James.
No.
We've got Wellingborough London Road. We've got Wellingborough Enstone Court, which
That's
is
on
in
the
the
edge.
middle of a housing estate.
Okay.
London Road is in a housing estate. So
Is it?
Uh,
Yeah.
Okay, so based on your experience within these restaurants that are attached either on the edge or nearby housing estates, what has the impact been? Obviously, I'm not probably going to get the right answer, I don't think. What has the impact been for local residents there? Have there any good responses, bad responses?
Well, we obviously renew our license every 12 months, or we pay a fee to have the license renewed. So we've not had any additional conditions or any concerns from anybody. And these sites have been operating. I've been a franchisee in this area for 22 years now.
Yeah.
And my first restaurant was Rawn's which is obviously a little bit further out. And then since 2008, I've been in the Northampton, and all those restaurants have been operating 24/7, and we've not had any concerns, or we've
And
not.
the whole seating area is opened, is it, or is it just purely just a drive-through?
Sorry, say that again.
Is the whole restaurant open, accessible during that whole evening, or is it just a drive-through after those
We
hours?
have restaurants that are open, but we will start with just operating the drive-through and delivery at this site, should the permission be granted.
Okay, thank you.
Because we need to go to the process of recruiting staff. So we've recruited some staff, but until we operate in those hours, it's very difficult to recruit for those hours. So once we get the permission, we will then start to recruit more staff to cover those hours.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, does anyone else have any more questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give all parties an opportunity to sum up the presentations. You don't have to repeat your presentation in full. Please try and sort of keep it brief and hit your high points. Start with Mr. Crick.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll keep this very brief then, as the chair has requested. First of all, just to reinforce that obviously a licensing committee does have the power to issue licenses. So it's your decision as to whether or not you issue this license. Secondly, I just want to, I'm not trying to bring up the whole procedure of what went on, what went wrong with the planning process this time. I'm simply pointing out here that this has been the only opportunity for residents to have their say about this. I just want you to be very, very aware of that, because I think that's of fundamental importance. And then just to reinforce those 2 points, fundamental points of principle here. First of all, that nothing has changed since 2018, when it was stated by elected councillors that the restaurant was not to be opened during the night time due to the residential character of the quiet area, the proximity of homes, the peaceful nighttime environment, and the risk of noise disturbance and antisocial behaviour. All those factors still apply today. And then the second and final fundamental point of principle is that this decision will set a precedent for the whole site, for Morrison's, Starbucks, and so on, and anybody else who might later on be given a concession on the site. If 24-hour opening is improved here, it effectively opens the door to a 24-hour commercial zone in the middle of a quiet residential area in Spinney Hill and Parklands. This is about the future of the entire area. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Crick. Also, just to point out to you, you aren't the only objector. We have had letters and various other representations from other people, so just to be aware of that. Okay, thank you very much, sir. And Sarah, would you like to sum up for your applicant?
Yes, please. Only briefly, because I did make quite a fulsome submission to start with, but just to pick up on a couple of those points, clearly something has changed since 2018, and that is the temporary planning permission, and it has the significance that I hope I have underlined quite clearly in the course of this hearing. Mr. Crick's mentioned a couple of times precedent. That would not be a lawful consideration for you to take into account. And I think you know that, and your legal advisor will pick up on that with you if necessary. But that is not a relevant licensing consideration, and it would be quite wrong to make a decision based upon what might happen with other premises in the future, what applications they might or might not make. And that, of course, is the flexibility and the beauty of the licensing regime. Every case is on its merits. Every case is based upon the evidence that comes forward. And as applications are made, you can take any impact of an existing license into account when you come to decide the next one. So whether this isn't a cumulative impact area, but cumulative impact is a consideration in licensing decisions. And so you could take that evidence into account. However, what you're actually dealing with here is a 12-month test period. That is what you have in front of you in essence, although I have said what I've said about making the full application, because it costs money to make applications over and over again. So that is not what I'm doing. But by default, if the planning application, if the planning permission after 12 months is not continued, that would become the most restrictive authorization. And you remember what I said at the beginning about you must operate to your most restrictive authorization. So having the more extensive license would be of no avail if you couldn't open under your planning permission. So by necessity, the premises after 12 months, if it wasn't working, would have to go back to those more restrictive hours. So I will emphasize that. And finish on this, just say it's understandable that residents have the concerns that they do. It won't surprise you to learn that I hear very, very similar objections whenever I do a McDonald's application across the entire estate. They're not different, they're the same. And everybody is concerned about litter and boy racers and antisocial behaviour and noise in the night and slamming car doors and all of those things. And they're not wrong to be worried about it, but they are wrong to assume that it will happen, because it doesn't. And the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And Mr. Akhtar has already explained to you that for the other 24-hour premises that he operates, there are no complaints, no interventions by the responsible authorities, no letters, no reviews, no warnings, nothing of that sort. And I can extend that out to the wider McDonald's estate. So for all of the applications that I have done where residents have said these things, it will be this, that, and the other. It will be terrible. It will be of concern. When it happens, it isn't. And if it is, you will also know you have the power of review, and the residents can bring a review, responsible authorities can bring a review, councillors can bring a review and say, well, we gave you the benefit of the doubt, but it hasn't worked out. And now here's the evidence. Here's the evidence that we can bring of complaints, of incidents, of police logs, of litter, of so on. And at that stage, the committee would have something to go on and say, right, well, these hours are not working, and now we must make a change. But at this stage, this is operating in the way that licensing is meant to. It is a permissive regime, always has been from the inception of the Act. It is a regime that says yes, unless there is a good reason to say no. And on this occasion, I hope I can finish with a reassurance that there will be no reason to say no. And under the experienced hand of Mr. Akhtar and his team, it will be fine. And that's obviously what the planning team believe. And everybody will take another look at it in 12 months' time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Sorry, Louise, I missed you out. Did you have anything to come back on?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
I thought so, thanks. Okay, is there anybody that feels that they would like to add something before we bring the committee meeting to a conclusion? I want everybody to feel they've had the opportunity to say anything they wish to say. Yes, Mr. Crick.
Thank you. Just one very short point on the question that Ms. Glover was talking about people who haven't complained in other sites. Obviously, we're not looking at we don't have all the evidence for that. But one thing that I would say here is that people in the community generally do have this feeling of powerlessness that's reinforced by not being consulted on decisions. And I think once permission has been given, people just sort of shrug the shoulders and say, well, there's nothing we can do, other than sort of move away from the area, because we're not going to be listened to anyway. Whatever we say, it makes no difference. So that's the reality. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much, sir. If no one else has,
Chair,
sorry?
it's not usual to have two bites of the cherry on closing submissions. In response to Mr. Crick, and I must respond to Mr. Crick, that simply isn't correct. That the power of review is a statutory power. If a review is submitted, the committee must hear it. There's no choice about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clover. Yes, you're quite correct there. Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, we always endeavour to listen to the residents, and these things are, as you say, statutory. So if no one else has anything further to add to the committee, he says scanning wildly, no hands waving anywhere. Okay. In that case, the subcommittee will now retire to make our decision. The decision of the subcommittee will be communicated to all parties in writing within 5 working days of this hearing. Details of how to make an appeal against the decision of the subcommittee will also be included. With that, I'm going to draw the committee meeting to a conclusion, and we're going to move into private members' debate. Thank you very much for your attendance, everyone.